Feeding back in.
Yeah.
Can we put it, does it matter if it's sitting there?
Yeah.
No,
let's sit
good.
here, even better. Okay. You ready to start? So I'm Katarina.
Steve.
Steve. Belinda.
Steve.
Mary.
Tony.
Justin. Jim.
Mel. Tess.
Terry.
Tony.
Now, if you can't hear me, let me know. 'Cause that's what we got. That's what we got this damn thing for. To see. Hello.
It's not switched. Is it switched on? It's right
No,
now.
go for it.
How's that?
Technology.
Yeah.
Technology.
There you
my
go.
God.
Perfect. You're a rock star.
Well, you know what you can all do. Recognise what we're saying for a start.
Now we might learn something, Bob.
For those that are new, we can't teach you anything and we can't tell you anything. Understand that. That's very important to understand right from the start. But when you see what we're pointing to and recognise what we're pointing to, you realise nobody can teach you anything and nobody can tell you anything. And it's nothing new that we're pointing to. It's not some, is it? Sorry? Not new, some newfangled idea or some sect or whatever you like to call it, or cult. It's based on all the ancient traditions and texts point to. Hinduism, for instance, they call it non-duality. And they tell you it's non-duality. To try to describe that non-duality, they say it's one without a second, not two. And when you look at that, you realise that one without a second, there couldn't be a second without the one. And so that basic one is the basic essence which everything is. Some of the things like most of people call it, got the idea from the scriptures and that they call it God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God. There is none other. Buddhists tell you.
Let me try and hold it for you for a moment.
The Parkinson's is playing over there.
That's why, yes.
The Buddhists tell you the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness, or that non-conceptual awareness is the absolute. Now look at that, the great perfection. What can you add to perfection? Nothing. What can you take away from perfection? Nothing. What can you add to the absolute? Nothing. What can you take away from it? Nothing. So you realise it's all based on that no thing. The no thing is appearing and expressing as everything. Buddhists again call it cognizing emptiness. Not that we are cognizing the emptiness, we think we are, but it's that emptiness itself has the capacity of cognizing or knowing. And he made the statement there and then that emptiness is form, pointing out that all this manifestation is that emptiness patterning, shaping and appearing and expressing as everything. You, me and everything else, the planets, the stars, anything at all. Only that. Emptiness is form, and he turned it round the other way, and the form can be nothing other than that emptiness. So get the sense of what's being said there, realise that you and everything else in this room are basic pattern shapes and forms of that pure, what I call, for want of a better label, and that's not label, intelligence energy. Intelligence is knowing. Anyone in this room who is not knowing right now, not saying knowing this or not knowing that, but the basic knowing or existing. Can you say you don't know or you don't exist? Even to be able to say it, you must realise there's a knowing or existence and enabling to speak or say or mouth anything. It's that intelligence energy, which I like to call intelligence energy, with that label is not it. Intelligence is knowing. And any knowing, the ing on it, is something that's happening in this immediacy. It's happening right now. Is anybody who's knowing right now? or not knowing right now. You see that knowingness of it? Just the same as every other activity that's going on. The seeing, the hearing, the tasting, the touching, the smelling. All activities that are going on in this immediacy. This timeless immediacy. So that's the activity of knowing. A knowing or any activity is energy. That's why I use the term intelligence energy, but that term is not it. When we go into it further, you'll see that the word is not the real. The word's not the thing. The word's only labelled. Again, in Hinduism, they call it Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, Rupa are the 5 factors. Sat is existence. Anyone who is not existing right now. Chit is consciousness. Anyone who is not a conscious or unaware right now, no, you realise I'm existing and I'm not unaware. Anyone who is not happy to be right now, Sat, Chit, Ananda, being, knowing and loving to be. Anyone who doesn't love to be, do you want to be dead right now? Somebody came along and said, this is the end of you, you wouldn't be too happy about it. So recognise and realise you are already that. And that's the Mahavakya, the great mantra. I am that, this is that, everything is that. And innately you already know that in your language. Because don't you say that's a chair, that's a carpet, that's you, that's me, that's somebody else, that's the stars, that's the trees, that's the planet. Everything is that which we put labels or concepts on. And when you understand the word is not the thing. All these words are not the actuality. See that. Take the word water. We believe there's such a thing as water, but can you drink that word? Can you drink the label? Can you swim in it? Can you wash in it or drown in it? You can't. Does the word fire burn your mouth when you speak it? Can you cook with the word? Heat yourself? Do anything with the word? You can't. So what's this word I or me that we've taken to believe? Maybe that's not what you are. And innately you already know that. Because we've taken on these words, we've learnt words, and taken on these words, you were told that you're a separate entity, an individual, a person. Where does the word person come from? Doesn't it come from an ancient language? I think it was Latin or Greek or something. I couldn't really care less, but have a look and see for yourself. Persona, the mask. Pointing out that we got this mask of concepts, mask of words we put upon ourselves. I'm Bob, an Australian, a good fellow, or I'm unhappy, or I'm depressed, I'm fearful or anxious. All these concepts are added onto that pure intelligence entity, the activity of knowing, conceptualising it and breaking it down into the seeming pattern, shape and form, the persona, the mask. And that's where all our problems arise from, that psychological problems arise from this belief that you are a separate entity, an individual. Go into it and investigate it. Because the things we point to, we say the false cannot stand up to investigation. Have a look and see for yourself. Because I can tell you all sorts of things. Have a look at it. People say Bob said this and Bob said that, or somebody else said this and somebody else said that. You take it to be real. Investigate it and see for yourself if it's real. Because if there is no persona, where are all these pattern shapes and forms, who can tell you anything? And whatever I say, think or do can be a useful pointer, or it can be a destructive pointer. But investigate it and see for yourself. Because as I say, nobody can do it all. That's all that can happen. Investigate and see for yourself. Because the false cannot stand up to investigation. Some of these erroneous beliefs we've taken on, constantly reinforced by that, putting the energy of belief into them, that are seemingly solid and substance and substantial. When you investigate them, they'll fall away because they have no substance in them. And have a look at your Bible. What does your Bible tell you if you're a Christian? Christian's another way of looking at it. And they put it in 3 terms. What is it?
Omnipresent.
Omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience. Omnipresence is total presence. Omnipotence is total power. But see what we've done with that. We take the mind power, thought power, your power, this power, some other power. But it's total power. There's no mind power. You believe it. And that'll be a hard one if you've never looked at this stuff to understand and see through. You couldn't even have a mind if that life essence wasn't functioning through the body. And there is no such thing as a mind when you look at it. Show me a mind if there's a believer in it. So we've got all these conceptual images. I've forgotten where I was before to carry on with it, but it doesn't matter, that's the way it is also. So we need to look at these things and investigate for ourselves. Have a look at this body, mind you believe you are yourself. Are you this body? Innately, you already know that. You are not the body. So we don't believe, we haven't investigated fully and gone through it. When you say my body, don't you say my coat, my car, my house, my shirt. Are you the coat? Are you the car? Are you the house? Are you the shirt? You know, they're just labels we put on these different things. Well, maybe you're not the body either. And if you investigate that and have a look at it, what's this body made up of? You'll realise this body, when you look at it, is made up of elements. All it is made up of earth, fire, space, energy. The five elements, water, fire, space, whatever it is. Well, body is made up of elements. So if you think you are a separate entity, an individual and person, separate yourself from those elements. Stop breathing. See how long you last with that element of air. If you can really separate yourself from yourself, you can't. Stop drinking water. See how long you can last without the water. The body's 80% water. Take the body temperature, the fire. See how long you can last without that element. Get out of space. Get out of the emptiness if you can. See how you can survive, or even get out of the emptiness. Where can you go to be outside of that space-like awareness? So when you look at it, you can't separate yourself from those elements. And every one of those elements has been broken down into subatomic particles, into pure space, pure emptiness. So you see the pattern body and all this manifestation is not what it appears to be. There again you're told that in the scriptures. The Buddhists will tell you that this manifestation is Maya. It is illusion. That's the word for Maya, is illusion. It's a phenomenal manifestation. Look up your dictionary, look up the word phenomena, and you'll see the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. It only appears, just like that mirror in the back of the room. It's got full of reflection. They appear to be there. Go up to the mirror and try and grab a reflection out of the mirror, you can't. So you can't say they're not there. But trying to grab one, you can't say it is there. And when you investigate it, you see there couldn't be a reflection if it wasn't reflecting on a reflecting surface, like the glass with a back to it. So the same with this manifestation. The definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. It's only seemingly so. So you can't say you are this body. Well, what about this thing called mind? It's my mind. I am the mind. Well, show me a mind. Anyone stand up and say, this is mind? Show me something substantial with a self-nature that has some solidity about it. And you realise there's no such thing as mind apart from thought. And what is thought? Are you a thought? And all the thought is a mental construct, constructed by the thinking, the imaging. And that's what Nisargadatta told you. Or Shakespeare told you 200 or 300 years ago, when he says there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's only the thinking that discriminates, divides it. And only thinking describes it and discriminates because it's a vibration. That's all a thought is a vibration. Look at your thoughts. See how they're functioning. and realise it's always functioning in the pairs opposites. It's either happy or sad, positive or negative, loving, hating, good or bad, pleasant or painful, and the boundaries we're putting upon it are the word, which we've learned. Are you the thing called mind? Well, you can't show me a thing called mind. And you realise from that, when you look at it, there's no such thing as mind apart from thought. And if mind is thought, and you believe you are this mind, what particular thought would you be? And the only thought you could be, you'd realise, would be this primary thought. The primary thought is I am. Comes from when we've learnt words, it's come from the vibrating sound of Om, translates as I am. Now, if you were that thought, and thought is your mind, you'd be frightened of losing sight of it, because without that thought it'd be the end of you. Yet you gladly give it up every night when you go to sleep. Gladly give it away. It disappears. It's not there throughout the day when you're thinking other thoughts. You can't think two thoughts at once or half a dozen thoughts at once. So it's not there throughout the day. So maybe you're not this conceptual I amness, this persona, this mask. And have a look at the words. And realise all these words you speak or speaking or have spoken, every word has been picked up along the way. You were not born with any words. Go back and have a look and see what words you were born with. Every word has been acquired or learnt along the way. And you realise, and some words you might have forgotten now, but you'll still be learning words if you pick up a dictionary. Because there are lots of words in the dictionary you haven't learnt yet. And when you understand, as I pointed out, the word's not the real, the word water is not the real, you see we've got a lot of mental constructs there we're taken to be real. Then you might understand we can never find the answer in the mind. Because that's all the mind does, is conceptualise in words, images, ideas. And Shakespeare told you that, nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Nisargadatta tells us the same thing, when nothing can trouble you excepting your own imagination. Look at all these fears, anxieties and psychological stresses and suffering and God. All come about from imagination. Look at that. Understand that. And you'd wonder, what the hell am I doing it for? Why do I keep doing it? Is there any necessity to carry on in this imaging? It can be very useful, of course, if you're an artist or something like that, and creative things, you can image in. That's all imagine is image in when it's broken down, imagine. You're breaking it down into imaginal or conceptual images and taking the image to be real. Instead of saying it's just a word we've learnt, which we put these different meanings on. So how does it come about? When you haven't got any words, we'll go back to that. We'll go back to when you began. I told you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all the Word is God. It's the label we put on this primary intelligence energy, or the whatever label you like to put on it. It's all labels. We put the word God on it. And see how we've stuffed that up. Because every tradition, and those that haven't got a tradition, I'll put a different meaning on that word. The Hindus got many meanings for God. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. I used to sing mantras years ago with the song 1,000 Names of Vishnu, a different 1,000 names for all God. The Buddhists call there's no God. That's the primary source or essence of which everything appears on. The Muslims will tell you there is no God but God. Allah is his name. Put a name on it. And Moses on the mountain, when he got the tablets, and he's trying to get the people, put them into some semblance of living amongst themselves happily and peacefully. When he got the tablets, he said they came to him in inspiration, and he had to go back and tell these people. He said, "What shall I say? Tell my people? Who shall I say sent me? When these words came. And that intuitive voice came to him, as it came to him and brought the tablets around. Tell them that I am sent me. I am is my name. And Moses realised, shit, I am that I am. And can't you say the same? That is what you are. You are the sense of presence, which is translated, put the label on it, I am. Without that label, can you say you are? Can you negate your beingness? You can't. And we go back to that beingness. When did you begin? You'll say, I began at birth. But why would you say that? When you don't know, you can't remember your birth. Can anyone remember your birth? You can't. Because you didn't have any words to recognise it. When did you begin? We'll go back as far as your father and your mother. You can go back as far as you like and trace it back if you like to investigate it. In that pattern, you call your father. In that pattern, through the essence of the food he ate and the breath, the prana, the functioning, the intelligence energy that was suffusing it, enabled in that pattern a little microscopic particle called a sperm to form, based on that energy in the food and the prana and everything. A sperm. You can't see it with your naked eye. Yet that sperm was suffused with an innate intelligence. And the same in your mother, that innate intelligence energy, the pattern shaped and forms your mother, enabled in that pattern another little microscopic particle called an ovum, or an egg to form in that. You can't see that with your naked eye. But the innate intelligence in that attached itself to all the uterus. It knew what to do. Implying it was suffused with intelligence. And again implying that the sperm was suffused, it didn't know what to do. It had to swim to the ovum. It wasn't just a dead dull blob of goo. It knew what to do, to swim and to swim to the ovum. And the sperm and the ovum knew what to do to attach itself to all of the uterus. So you see the intelligence energy, the life force was in those two. Sperm knew where to swim to and to the ovum and to penetrate the ovum. And when those two came together, what did it do? That innate intelligence energy doubled that cell, doubled it again, and with the genes and all the information that was in those two, the little embryo, the little fetus began to form, which is you today. And what were you doing about it then? If you think you're running the show as this person. Did you say, I've got to grow a heart or a lung or even a brain? You didn't have any of those things. Or fingers or toes, you didn't. But the innate intelligence suffusing you this moment, you knew what to do. Realise it was the livingness, the life of you then, and it's the life of you today. And it's still expression. But we've lost sight of it. We've lost sight of it. As Christ told you, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. That sense of presence that translates through the mind is I am. He wasn't talking about himself. People think he was and set him up. He was something greater and higher and better than you, me, or anything else. Not realise it's the one essence is expressing, patterning, shaping and forming as everything. There's never been two. And you are that same essence. So where was I up to? Nobody can tell me you weren't listening.
Listening.
Been all over. I am that I am.
Yeah, I've been that, yeah.
It's a long way of listening.
So, we're pattern, shape and form as that little embryo became, and after 9 months you came out. That's when the birth took place, but you can't remember it because you had no words. And you understand why you didn't have any words, because you didn't learn words till you were about 2.5. Somewhere around that age. Might have been a bit less, might have been a bit more, it doesn't matter. There's no exact static time for it. But somewhere along that age, pure intelligence started to function in you, and you learnt words. And that's when you begin. You see that concept or idea in the Bible takes on a different meaning when it says in the beginning was a word. You think way back 1 billion light years away you began. But you didn't, because there is no time to it. It's a spontaneous functioning. When you investigate time and have a look, you'll see time is a spontaneous. No such thing as time. It's spontaneously this immediacy right now. And that bit of life began for you. The capacity of reasoning developed then. And that's a capacity these human forms have, which is more developed than what it is in a lot of animals, birds and insects and other things. They have different capacities that are more developed than what our capacity of reasoning is. Take a bird, for instance. It has the capacity of eyesight that's much better than yours or mine. And it has the capacity of flying. We can't do that naturally, but it can't work things out in the mind as much as we can. It does not using that capacity. But we can't have the capacity of our eyesight is not as good as those, but through the capacity of reasoning, haven't we learnt to build ourselves eyeglasses if our eyes are failing, telescopes and binoculars, which enable us to see better? And haven't we learned to build ourselves planes, helicopters, balloons and things like that that will enable us to fly? So that capacity of reasoning is a very useful capacity, but it's very self-destructive. But it's the same capacity of reasoning, which is a vibrating pattern like everything else, which tells me I'm not good enough, that I'm fearful, that I'm anxious, that I'm unhappy, I'm sad, I'm depressed. I've got low self-esteem, nobody likes me. All these conceptual images of psychological suffering that it brings up, we've added on to this cognizing emptiness, this sense of presence, this pure intelligence energy, to give it some capacity or static shape or form which we've taken to believe is separate and apart from everything else. But we are not that. The dog has a sense of smell, the capacity of smelling. It's much more developed than you and I. Chameleons and other insects will change colour. Have a look at nature, and there's all sorts of things going on in different capacities. We have this capacity of reasoning, and it's through that capacity of reasoning we recognise this thing we call the manifestation. But we're not realising it's a spontaneous realisation. We're taking on what's been told. We don't miss out on what's been told down through the ages. It's transient. It is spontaneous. And that's what the Buddhists tell you. It's illusion and it's transient. It's constantly changing. It only lasts momentarily. Well, not even a moment. That's a source of time also, a vibration. Because this manifestation, as I say, it's time bound. So we've given this conceptual image a continuity when it's not. It's spontaneous. And they tell you the manifestation is transient. It's constantly changing. And see that for yourself. You mightn't realise it, but when you have a look at it, you haven't got the same body you walked into this room with. You might think you have. And you recognise and realise, if you investigate, there's thousands of cells dying in it right now and being replaced. And see that. Go back to what your body was like 10 years ago or 20 years ago or when you were a little child, little baby. It's not the same body, but it's the same sense of presence functioning through it. The concepts on it are different, but the knowing, the pure knowing, being, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching was there. I hadn't have acquired too much knowledge then in the seeing, hearing, but it's the same. So the intelligence energy, the natural life essence of function hasn't changed, but the content has changed. Just the same as you're seeing right now. And you don't realise it's the same seeing you've had since you woke up this morning. It's the same seeing you had yesterday, last week, last year. As far back as you can remember, it's the same seeing. The seeing hasn't changed, but the content has. And the content is continually changing. It's changing every moment in this room. The same with the hearing. When this capacity of reasoning comes about, we form this big conceptual image we believe we are. I'm Bob, we're told, my parents and tell me, you're little Johnny, you're a good boy, you're a bad boy, you're unhappy. They told me I'm Bob. And I learned that I'm Bob the Australian, the good fellow, not so good, I got low self-esteem, I'm fearful, I'm unhappy. All these things that happen, I put different concepts and labels, reinforced by my parents, my school, my society and everybody around me, and myself, because it's never been questioned. But down through the ages, there have always been a few that recognised it and passed it on. And there weren't many in the old days, and they didn't have the means of communication that we have. They'd pass it on to a few in a village, and would pass it on to someone. Not everybody wants to hear it, not everybody would hear it. It's been passed on, and that's where all the scriptures come from and been translated from, but they put different concepts on and lose sight of them based on their own beliefs and traditions, and they don't like what the other fellow's telling them. It might be in different words, but it's put down on the same thing. So each one, there's all these different traditions we've got, different religions we've got, all based on the same. Yeah. And what have we done? We've set up the people that are pointed out as saints, saviours, sages and seers and gods in some cases. And we've worshipped the messenger and lost sight of the message. The message is the same all the way through. You are that. You've only and ever been that. You only and ever could be that. That is all there is. There is nothing other than that. As I say, in your language, that's a chair, that's a carpet, that's you, that's me. And we put different labels, chair, carpet, on the thatness. Take the word being. Being, knowing, loving to be. Take the word knowing. Being. You put that label on that I'm so-and-so, and I've got to become realised or self-liberated. Self-realised or self-liberated. Becoming is not being. Becoming is the concept or idea of a future time. Try and become if you can. You believe you can in your memory or conceptual anticipation, imagination. You'll think you become this, but the actual becoming you can't. It's always this moment. And take that beingness. Don't you call God, if you believe in a God, the supreme being? And don't you call yourself the human being? What happened if you took that label, which you've learned, supreme off, took the label human off, and tried to separate the beingness in this room without putting a label on? And you realize just the same as that. That's being a chair, that's being you, that's being me. Everything is that beingness, which we've put concepts or labels on. And we lose sight of the actuality, the beingness, the lovingness to be, and the existence of that beingness, and gone into the concept. That's being a chair, that's being a carpet. And we lost sight of our true nature. That's all that needs to happen, to come back and recognise. You've already cognised it because you've had tastes of it all through your life. And then you'll say, it's gone, I've lost it. But all that needs to happen, it's a cognising emptiness, as the Buddha pointed out. Not that we are cognising. Another word for cognising is knowing. It's not that we are cognising, but it's the cognising that's doing it itself. That intelligence energy that functions as used by is knowing. It's knowing to be able to pattern, shape and form all the content of it, the space, the stars, the planet, the trees, the flowers, the humans, the insects, the birds, are based on that knowingness, their pure intelligence. They're all in patterns of that intelligence. So it's the emptiness that's doing the cognising. It's emptiness that's living you. And you realise that. There is only life, as Nagarjuna pointed out. That's all there is life. But there is nobody who lives a life. Life is doing the living. It's doing the patterning, shaping, doing and functioning. It's breathing you, just the same as falling planet stars. It's breathing you. It's beating your heart. It's growing your hair in your fingernails. It's digesting your food. Have a look at that. Without that life essence, could you take a breath? Could you think a thought? Could you hear a word or do this or that? Without that life essence, a good analogy for that is like a computer. You got all that information in your computer. You can punch those keys as long as you like and run that mouse around all over it. If you haven't got the power turned on, what good is it to you? Not a bit of good. You've got this body, mind, which is the pattern, statement form, which is expressing, it's enabled us to the functioning to go on in this manifestation and to describe it or recognise it. Without that life essence in this body, it's got the heart, the lungs, the eyes, the ears, the corpse, it's got all these things in it. Kidneys, blood, heart, reason, but they're all not a bit of good without the life suffusing it. So what are you? The body, mind that needs that life to function, or are you the life that's patterning, shaping, forming and expressing as it, that's forming it? So utilise it as you are, that life. Recognise it and utilise it. Allow it to be, allow it to express. Realise it's brought you into existence. It's growing you to the pattern, shape and form where you are today. It's living you, breathing you right now. It's enabled the hearing to go on, the seeing to go on, the tasting, touching. If some of these hearing resonates and rings a bell, follow it through, see where it takes you. Some of the seeing and hearing, do the cognizing, let the cognizing take place, and it'll take you to where you've got to go. Now you've reached this adulthood, and you've probably done all sorts of things. You've had taste of it and recognising it. Something's moved you to look along these lines and recognise it. Try to work it out in the mind. Done all sorts of meditations, read all sorts of books, done all sorts of retreats, this, that and the other that we do on the so-called spiritual search. But you've never found the answer. If you'd found the answer, you wouldn't be coming here. You wouldn't want anything or need anything. But you've never found the answer. And what have you been doing all this time? You've been looking for the answer in the mind, in the next mantra, in the next conceptual image, the next book. But realise you will not find the answer in the mind. You will never ever get peace of mind. And don't the ancients tell you that in the scriptures? And say the peace is past, they call it the peace that passeth all understanding. Understanding means looking in the mind for something. Pure understanding, looking in the mind. But the peace is when the mind is not. It's when the understanding dawns on you and you recognise. A resonation. Oh shit. Is that what it is? Why haven't I seen this before? And you have seen it. Why have I lost it? You've lost it because you've gone back into the conceptualising. Nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Nothing troubles you except in your own imagination. We've gone back into thinking about it and imagining it. Thinking's very useful, but it's self-destructing anyway. Those things that resonate and ring a bell, follow them through. Recognise the truth, seeing the truth. And isn't that the scriptural saying? Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's where the freedom is, in recognising the actuality that you are. We can go into a lot of other things and explain them and point them out, test them yourself, a lot of other things you recognise. But see how this self-centred ego comes about. When that capacity of reasoning comes about, and you learnt these words, without questioning, you take the belief. When they say the little Johnny or little Billy, yes, I am little Johnny. You've learnt those words, and that's what I am. And I'm the good boy or the bad boy, or I'm unhappy, I'm fearful, all these other concepts to it. And I form this conceptual image by reinforcing it every day and believing it. I am God, the Australian. My parents told me so, and I believe this is so. And that conceptual image, we had all these concepts to it, now becomes the reference point. The self-centre and the ego. They're three different words I put on the same thing. In other words, we're constantly referring to this conceptual image I got. I know this, or I know that, or bloody that. Self-centre, that becomes the self-centre, or the ego. And we're told in the scriptures, you've got to get rid of this ego. That's the ego is the problem. That's the ego will kill you. Recognise, get rid of it, see it. Do this, do that, kill it, sublimate it, put it on the carpet. But the real scriptures will tell you, There is no such thing as ego. You don't have to do anything with it, just recognise it's a fiction. It's got no substance or any independent nature. But we don't see that, can you? So we get this reference point, and everything becomes relative to that reference point. Something comes up and I like it. Relativity or relationship, everything is a problem. Then now all the problems come about because of this relativity or relationship. Relativity is dualism. Relationship is dualism. And what we're talking about here is non-duality. And we point out there is absolutely no duality, never was, never will be, or never could be. It's a total fiction. Understand that, get the confidence in that, in the seeing and recognising it, and you're free of the belief there is a duality. How does that work? Well, something comes up and I like it. How do you know? Well, me, Bob, the reference point, has had this experience before, and it's good. And what do we want? We want to keep the good experiences and good feelings. We don't want to lose them. Not realising that they're transient, no matter how much you love them, no matter how much you want to keep them there, it's going to move on. And have a look at this. Some of those you love have died, some of them left you, some of them moved on. Other people have moved on. Things around you have changed. The transient's constantly changing. The phenomenal manifestation is constantly changing. We don't want it to go, so what do? We resist it. We try our hardest to keep it there. And don't you realise resistance is conflict? And any conflict you are in makes you unhappy, anxious, fearful, self-pity, resentful. That unhappiness, disease, uneasiness, which is disease. So resistance, conflict and disease, uneasiness is going on with us all the time. And I say all the time because I mean all the time. What happens if something comes up that you don't like? Well, I don't want this one, and I've got to get rid of it. So what do? Resist it. The me, Bob, the Australian, tries to push it away, get rid of it. I don't want it. Again, resistance, conflict, disease, unhappiness. That's the conflict that's going on with us all the time. Resistance, conflict and disease. Anxiousness, fear, depression, unhappy. Short periods of everything is going on. The things I like are there, but they don't last because they're transient like everything else. Everything is going to change. But why do you prefer one over the other when there's no one-ended stick? Each stick's got two ends to it, and there's no one-sided coin. Every coin got... There's always two ends to the stick. It's always going to vibrate and the pairs of opposites. If you've got no, as the great Hinsing Ming tells you, if you've got no preferences, great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything is clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. That's the distinctions we make and the discrimination that goes on with the word. Utilise the word, but when it uses you in this discriminating, it becomes a problem. So we've got this conceptual image, which is constantly relating to everything, and are constantly in this psychological suffering. It's always happening to me. Me is the cause. The conceptual image, the egoic image is the cause of all my psychological suffering. And they're the effects of the cause, is the fear, the anxiety, the stress that we've added onto this dead image, which is based on past. And a dead image cannot keep up with life. And isn't that what so-called karma is? Cause and effect. But what if I asked the simple question, can there be an effect if I'm not relating to the cause? Well, have a look at that. If you're not relating to sadness or to fear or depression to the cause, I'm saying, who is it happening to? It's happening to me. If it's not related to me, where is it? It's a concept or an image or an essence that's going on and might be patterning the shape and form. It's there as pure sensation without putting the conceptual label on it. And see how long it stays there then, when there's no resistance to it. The resistance is gone, How long is anything going to stay there? Look at the sun and the clouds over the sun. How long does the cloud stay in the sky, though it seemingly obscure the sun? It's not attached to the sky, it'll move on. Where are yesterday's thoughts? Are they fixed in your head? The thoughts last week and last year, are they there? The feelings and the activities? Isn't it all transient? Anything sticking or changing? To keep them there, you've got to put some energy in trying to hold them. And that's what we do. We keep we're going back into them, recreating them. When you look at time, you'll see how that comes about. So you see me as the cause of all your problems. And this me is a dead image. It's based on past events experiencing a image. Life is continually ever fresh, ever new. It's spontaneous. The activity of going on right now, not becoming, it's always being. When does now begin? Grab it and see, well, it's beginning right now. I'll try and hold it there. You can't. Because as you're already saying it's beginning, it's already ending. And it's beginning and ending in. Then you'll say, I was in the past. All right, if you're in the past, try and live a moment ago. Try and live yesterday. Go back and try and live last week and last year. You can recall it. But the actuality of living can't. All you can do in recalling it is you're recalling it right now. Because there's nothing you can, what you said a moment ago, you can't even recall it. And you can't even, unless you recall it, you can't. It's not there, it's gone. It can only be recalled and given life again in the moment, in the recollection. What about the future? You can anticipate and imagine what you're going to do when you leave here or next week. But you can't live a moment ahead of what's not right now. And the anticipation and imagination that might not happen. So you see, when you say you've got to try and stay in the now, people tell you you've got to try and stay in the now. I'll say try and get out of it. Because there is only and ever what you call now, and now is a conceptual image for that anyway. This immediacy or this spontaneous activity is all there is. And you've never moved away. Learn to recognise, relax, and seemingly keep recognising it. Any moving away seems it's conceptual. And the other thing is to have a look and see if this conceptual image you formed about yourself is really what you are. Everybody is seeing right now. Everybody is hearing right now. Isn't that a fact? Yes, I'm seeing, I'm hearing. Ask yourself this. Does my eye tell me I see? My eye's not saying to me, look at this, Bob, look at that, that's good, that's bad. The seeing is happening through the eye. And it's happening because that life essence, not me, Bob, the entity is seeing. The seeing is happening through the eye. And it's translated by the thought, I see. And the thought I see is no longer pure seeing. That's me, Bob, the Australian, the good fellow, the egoic conceptual image I got about myself, now thinks it has the capacity of seeing. A mental image thinks it has the capacity of seeing. The same with the hearing. Everybody is hearing right now. When you woke up this morning, the hearing was there. If somebody called you loudly in deep sleep, the hearing would have been there. It's not far away. But ask yourself this. Is my ear telling me I hear? My ear is not saying to me, listen to this, Bob, listen to that, that's a lot of bullshit, or that's truth. My ear cannot tell me anything. But it is the capacity through the instrument, there is the capacity through which the hearing is happening. And the capacity is translated by that thought I hear. So have a look at that. Does that thought I see actually see? Close your eyes, look around the room and prove to yourself right now, what things can you see in the room with your eyes closed? You realise you can imagine them and form conceptual images about it. What you can actually see, with the eyes closed is only the backs of your eyelids, which is darkness, or whatever's going on behind it. You can't actually see the things in the room. So you recognise that thought I see can't see. The seeing is happening, but it's translated by the thought I see. It's translated to concepts and images, but the thought I see can't see. The same with the hearing. Put your hands over your ears, block your ears out, and see what you can hear with the thought. You do that, you realise the thought I hear can't hear. Anybody who's not aware right now? No, you must realise I'm not unaware, so I must be aware. So you are aware right now. But is that thought I am aware your awareness? You realise you're not unaware, and you weren't thinking I'm aware all the time, so that thought I am aware is not your awareness. The other one is the thought I choose. You come to believe, if you haven't questioned it, that the thought I choose, you can choose your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. Why the hell would you ever have an unhappy, miserable, or bad, or crook thought? You don't want to be unhappy, jealous, or envious. You try to get rid of these all things. Why would you ever have them if you could choose your thoughts? So you'll see that conceptual image that thinks it's doing all this can't choose a thought. It can't see it, hear, can't be aware, can't choose. Can't do anything at all without life essence. And if that life essence is not in the body, enabling the thinking, seeing, hearing, tasting and smelling, you're a corpse. And that life essence is a so-called imagined egoic image we've got to build ourselves. It's a fiction. That's what we point out and ask you to look along those lines to see for yourself. All this crap I'm telling you, unless you take it aboard and look at it, investigate it, not a bit of good to you. And other people might point it out in a slightly different way, where you might hear it, might resonate with you. Take it in if you hear it and resonate with it. So test it out. And if you're testing about, it'll bring about more clarity, more understanding and insights coming up through words in you until the understanding and recognition is and confidence is there that I am that. I've always been that and always been. To a position where nobody can ever knock you off that perch. But as it stands right now, you'll hear this and you'll go back out there into the world where 99.9% of the world are coming from that point of view of the me. And they'll suck you in, suck you back into it. Because that's what you believed without questioning. Now you start to question it and recognise the truth. You'll start to stand aside. And people will see the change that comes about in you. And instead of them sucking you back in, they'll come along and question you. They'll recognise something and want to hear what you've got to say. And that way you can suck them out of it. They'll come about it and start to recognise and resonate with the truth that will set you free themselves. And that's how this message and understanding can be carried on. Somebody can put it more clearly and better than I can. I haven't got the education and understanding I can. Some mightn't put it so clearly. But whatever way it is, take in what resonates and utilise it. And don't hesitate to ask questions that would bring up any doubts, or if you've got an understanding, put it out there, it might help. Because that's what we're here about. Not getting off into the story. You can go out there to all your psychologists and psychiatrists and everybody else, they'll tell them the story and how to try and resolve it, and they can help to a certain extent. But the actual resonation and recognition with the truth is what you are, is only can be done by yourself. And they mightn't be in all this, they're so locked into this other thing, they mightn't be able to recognise with some of those other things pointed to that'll help you along the way. A bit of meditation, a bit of mantra, repetition, or go into some counselling and things like that. You can't say they do help, you can't say they don't, but see where they take you. But if you don't start to recognise and resonate, you can be in there forever. So away you go, get into it. And understand this, if you know what I'm talking. If you get the taste of it, you get an inkling of it. There's no way in the world you can let it go. You can walk out of here and say, I'll never be back. And I've had two people do that 20 or 30 years ago and have come back or have recognised it somewhere else. Once it catches a hold of it, once it brings you to look at this stuff, if you get the taste of it, you can't continue to shut yourself off from it. That's all we do. We shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of belief turns in and kind of takes us back into all this rubbish again. In spite of that, some can keep to the idea and image, I'll get this, I'm close to it, I'll get to it. But if we let go and see where it takes you. Yep.
So, we started out, I talked about sleep and awareness of that beingness in sleep.
Mm.
He talks about sleep and that awareness of beingness in sleep. I
Yep.
think he was asked numerous times whether he's aware of that beingness in sleep, in which he said, yes, he's aware of that beingness all the time. Can you just kind of maybe elaborate
Well,
a little bit?
if you have a deep sleep one night, have a good peaceful sleep, you wake up the next morning, what'd you say? I slept well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you do.
I had a peaceful sleep. Why would you be able to say that? If it hadn't resonated. You know, you don't know what was going on that you can isolate, but you know in that no thing seemingly sleep there's a lot of peace that couldn't express it in words, concepts. There's nothing you can say was right or wrong with it.
So, because from my perspective, you wake up in the morning and you say, yes, I had a good sleep, because you've got memories of going to sleep, and then, there's a gap in between.
Yeah.
There was no awareness of what happened, or at least no awareness of the
Well,
I am,
yeah.
Atman, I am, and then all of a sudden in the morning you wake up and you think, oh, I had a good sleep.
And when you say there was no awareness, how do you know?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Well, it comes out. Was there an unawareness? If you can say there was no awareness, it must, in that seeming unawareness, there must have been an awareness that you were unaware at that moment. See, it's something you're trying to grasp with the concept, you won't.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah.
That's what I'm. So, because yes, you can turn it into a supposition and say,
Yeah.
well, was I aware of being unaware, and then kind of use deductive logic and say, well, no, I must have been aware. And what I'm asking was, when he says that he had awareness of being, does that mean that there was actually an experience there of being asleep?
Yeah. The experience there is pure experiencing.
Okay.
When you can't say that's the content, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you can take that back prior to your birth, your death, when was that time you were not? If you're not relating to that body pattern. You can't say there was a time you're not. Will there be a time you will not be? Again, you conceptualise and imagine it. But what is the actuality? Right here, right now, you are not unaware. So you must be aware whether there's thought going on or not, or life going on. So take it. See, with that used to conceptualising, trying to grasp it with a concept, we'll hang around, we'll think we'll work it out in the mind. The physicists and the scientists are still working out. Big Bang had a so-called beginning, whether it's billions of light years away or whatever. Anything that has a beginning has got to have an end. They talked about when does now begin? Beginning right now. When's it ending? It's ending right now. Scientists the same way. They're revealing lots of things that are useful and everything like that, but they'll never find an ending to it. because there is no beginning and no end to it. And all these things are coming to and are very useful, a lot of them. And they're trying to relieve a lot of the self-centeredness, and they're going things like that. But the only way you can come about to it purposely or really is when the mind is not. And the mind is not when you realise there's no such thing as mind without a concept. And the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Now, it doesn't mean to say you're going to do away with concepts. Concepts will always come up. But understand a concept is a concept. A mental construct. And everybody in this room will form a concept about you. It might be subtle, but everybody will form a concept. And you will form a concept about yourself. And you'll have this concept about yourself too. And you'll have a concept about the other. Which concept would be right? All concepts, no concept. So with no concepts, who can ever be superior to you? Who can ever be inferior to you? What would you want of the other persons? Whether they're rich, poor, you like, you don't like it, we don't want any of that. If you reckon you're the same conceptual awareness as they are. So there's your answer. Non-conceptual awareness. The great perfection. The absolute.
There's no time on this. There's no time. I'm this. This is it. All of this. I'm just going to see that there's no there either, is there? There's no there. There's no there. If there's no time, there's no there.
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 No.
No. So
No, here, there, anything, any of the opposites.
it's like the phone demonstration.
Yeah.
There is no there.
Yeah.
The phone wasn't there. So there's no there either. There's no
No.
time.
No,
So
no
there's
time, no past, no future, no beginning, no end.
So all of this is me. Is not even me. This is it.
Yeah.
So then I've got there's nowhere, I haven't actually got a centre. I'm not anywhere.
Exactly.
I'm in this.
Yeah.
Or this is
Yeah.
It's beautifully put.
Yeah. Didn't Sarka tell you, don't you know that you are the no thing? You are proprietor, all the things appear in that no thing. And have the courage to be as no thing. Have the courage to be as that no thing. Everything appears as that no thing appearing as something. And the something we put labels, patterns and shapes and forms on. But realise no matter what, it is not separate from the no things. It's all the content of space. And that's when we call it things. You and I, the chair, the carpet, everything are things. Space, silence, stillness is no thing. Can something come from nothing? It can't, but we take it to be real. So see, it is the no thing that's prattling, shaping, form and expressing as everything, but it's never left its true nature, no thing. Take it, utilise it, move it, you can play with it. But when it takes the belief that you are that something that's trying to become no thing, or do this or do that, go back to and remember as far as you can what you've done about living from the time before you could reason. It was going on then, and realise it's going on now. Whatever, whichever, or how, why, or when you think, it still goes on. And the patterning, shaping, forming, and the conceptual image you think it's going to be able to leave it as it is, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. No preference, no partiality, no comparison.
It's looking for it. It's like the body or the mind or whatever it is. It's looking for it. It wants something. There's almost, I'm labelling it, but there's like a sort of a fear or an energy that wants to hang on to it, wants to hang on to something. Otherwise it's not here, which it's not. It's not here anyway. I just think of it in a sense. I don't know, again, it's hard to put words on it. There's a, yeah, anyway, that's enough from me.
You're right, though, the whole notion of time is in the mind,
Yes.
completely in the mind. If there's no thought, and we are just absolutely smack bang in the present moment, right here, right now, where's time exist? Seriously, where does it exist? It only exists when we go into the mind and compare this moment from a past moment.
Yeah. And there's no,
But there's
no here and there's no there.
and it's always now.
Which is
That's-
everywhere. Which is
Try,
everything.
yeah,
which is
try and get out of the now.
It's totality. Been pointed out down through the ages. Yeah. Walt Whitman will tell you in one of his poems, he says, far down I see the the great nothing. He says, I know I was even there. And he says, I'm not contained between my hat and my boots. Not contained in this encapsulated body-mind pattern. And we see that when we say, they tell you to be without thoughts. We think we've got to get rid of every thought. You don't, but let the thought be without. There's no, try and find a thought within you right now. The thought's right out. When's your next thought going to be? Comes up and translates and appears to be within, but find out where it's beginning and where it's ending. Can you find a starting point anywhere? You know? And when every time you breathe in, you say you inspire. And you've heard some of these great inventors and things like that. I was looking for this, trying to work this thing out, and I couldn't. I went to sleep one night. And in the night, a great inspiration came upon me, and the answer was there next morning. Inspiration. It was inspired with the breath. And I tell you the thing, when you expire, let the thought ride on the breath. Don't try and push it out because of the mean of trying to push it out. But when you exhale, you expire, let the thought ride out on that. Have a look at it. What's there when you let that and see where the thought's gone out and you've got no thought there. You feel there's a very subtle hiatus there. So you really, the thought is not within. It is without. And without doesn't mean without a thought, it means without outside of this seeming conceptual image. It comes into it and is utilised within it.
And then goes back out.
But usually we don't. We keep it there, and it's just like you've got a rock on the tide, and the water's rushing out, and it's going around this rock and doesn't move it. What happens if it's floating on the tide? Psst, goes down. The tide will come back in again.
Can one's personal me exist if what's being said about time is true, that there's no such thing as time? Could the personal me exist if there's no such thing as time?
I've looked.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
There is nothing.
Because all the personal me is a memory, which is all based on the concept of time. I might bring my history, my memory of self or events or whatever, I bring my history into the present and call that me. What am I? What? all that's happening is an idea is being brought into the present, and I'm claiming myself that the me is the idea. What the fuck? If that didn't happen, would you disappear? You'd still be here. It'd still be present.
But the I,
But the me
the
would be
individual,
absent.
gone.
Yeah.
And this is still here.
Yeah.
All of this is still
Yeah.
here.
So we identify with memory. And all memory is words and thoughts.
Concepts.
And then all the concepts and belief systems and so on and so forth. And we could talk about that for days. But the reality is, all it is, memory, is word and thought. That's why we can't remember prior to 2 years of age. Word and thought hadn't been developed yet. But concept of self hadn't been developed yet. And then we grow up with that, as everybody else does around us, believing that what I am is what I think. And don't even have any fucking control over what we think. Zip. It just spontaneously keeps
Comes in with the
manifesting. Just
breath. Comes
keeps.
in with the breath. Yeah.
That's
Comes in with
it.
the breath,
Thoughts
then you
come and
breathe
go,
on.
and
Yeah,
it
I
says,
love
which thought am I? And, you know, 1 minute I'm feeling okay, I think I'm okay. The next minute I think I'm not okay. Next thing I think I'm great, I think I'm not confident. I think. And, you know, the whole identity, that the whole personalised me identity is nothing but thoughts. If you could wipe that out and create amnesia in every single person sitting in the room, complete amnesia so you didn't even recognise who you were when you looked in the mirror, just wiped it out. And all we're doing is wiping out thought. Amnesia. That's all. Let's create that. Where's your me then? That's it. Like, you can't get a much better pointer than that. You really can't. In terms of starting to see what the me is, what it actually is. It's memory.
This keeps running, this body keeps running through concepts, and like, so I can still go, I could go to work, I've been doing that for so long, the body does it itself, it drives a car. I don't have to think about driving a car, it just drives the car.
You don't have to think about thinking, it just thinks
Yeah,
as well.
it just does that.
Bob has something to say.
And Terry started off and says there's no such thing. That's the way it all. I put time on it. He elaborated on that and talked about it. But there's no such thing. All these are all things. The whole manifestation, from the minutest particle, the largest galaxy, are all things which we put labels on. But everything is actually no thing. As he pointed out, if you point out with time, you can do that with everything. Where does that leave you? As the totality. Be that. Makes you laugh, doesn't it?
It does. When you start to see it, it's like, oh my God.
Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. And even that's a concept too.
But it takes that. Nothing to do, nothing to be, nothing to see, nowhere to go. But the seeing, hearing, going, being, it happens. And continue to happen. Just all vibrating patterns spontaneously happening. And it's Nisargadatta tells you, the unexpected always happens. The anticipated and imagined very rarely, if ever, does. So leave it, express in its own way without trying to expect it to be this way or that way. You've got to hold a reference point to try and make that seeming expectation happen. Leave it function of itself. Just like, same as the earth is rolling around the sun right now. Nobody's pushing it, nobody's promoting it. And in that rolling around the earth, come on, all sorts of different things will come into it. Is it struggling with any of it? The heat on this side, the cool on that side, the wind, the ice, and everything like that? Not at all. It's happening.
So in a nutshell, all what is happening is part of the dream, right? And you've got beginning and end, which Now you've got to have it to make it work, but in actual fact, nothing's happening.
Oh, it's going to appear. So,
Yeah, but in actual fact, nothing's happening.
no, nothing's it.
But in the relative, you've got it and you're in it.
Yeah.
The only thing is to see it. That's it.
Well, yeah, let it display. They call it in Hinduism Shiva Shakti. Shiva, the static aspect, the space, the emptiness, the static aspect. Shiva is the totality. Shakti, the female aspect, the consort. Shakti dances or vibrates. And in that vibration, patterns, shapes and forms, beautiful dance. The world appeared. It's still only a dance, seemingly paired. Sing. They never were two.
The fact that we are conceptualising, is that a fall?
No. No, as long as you understand what's a concept, just a mental construct. It's going to go on. Thinking's going to go on. But understand it. Is there a thinker thinking? Thinker is thinking, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. The ing on them is something that's going on immediately. You're seeing right now. If there's any thoughts coming up, you're thinking right now. But you bring into it, I think. The I think is that conceptual image you've got of yourself. Becomes the subject. I think that thought. That becomes the object. So thinking is seemingly divided subject-object. Seer is seemingly divided to seer and seen. Taster is seemingly divided to taster and tasted. They're divided into duality. But can there be a thinker without thinking? Isn't the thinking happening before it's translated into I think? Isn't the seeing happening before it's translated into I see? So the seeing, hearing, they're going to go on. They're the pure experiencing going on. And to give them some seeming shape or form or pattern, you've got to translate them. But you know the translation is appearance only. Just the same as the metaphors you know you've seen through and you no longer believe in. Santa Claus, for instance, you believed in Santa Claus. Would you believe it today? No. But what we set it up for our kids because you got some pleasure out of it. So it's a good thing to bring them out and let the kids, and they work it out sooner or later. Go down to the ocean, I say, give me a bucket of blue water out of the sea. You don't be stupid. You know the sea was never blue. In space, in a plane, go up 30,000 feet. Is that space coming through the window of the plane? Is there empty? You know, space is. The sky's not blue. That blueness is not coming in. Water in a mirage. You drive down the road and see what appears to be water in the mirage. It's only the sunshine simmering on the bitumen and seeming rising from it. The earth, the sky, the horizon. People said, "Don't go out there." When they sit on the shore and looked out where the sea and the sky went, don't go out there. You'll fall off the edge of the earth. They believed the earth was flat. That's what intelligence has done, and investigated all these things and seen the falseness of them. They still appear to be so, but you take the appearance is no longer believed in. You recognise what is. So concepts and things will still come up, but they can be utilised. But see, the false is false. The false cannot stand up to an investigation.
I'm reading Mr. Gavada's book and it said, all is because you are. Well, now, the way I understand it is that all exists because I exist. If I didn't exist, none of this would exist. Is that correct or not?
Well, what's the I? That's part of the verb to be also. I am, is, I are. All, everything is.
All is.
If that isnness, that expression as you, wasn't there to see and recognise it.
Oh, that's right. So,
It's the one essence appearing as everything.
but that's got to be first. But before the I am is got to be first before the existence.
The sense of presence
yes,
has to be there, the knowing,
be there first. Yeah.
which translates to the thought I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Isness is not wasing or will being. It implies total presence. So if that total presence isn't there, who can say is or is not? And that's the pattern through which it's expressing through. And that pattern any different from anything else? Only when you're separated. It is the totality expressing as you that enable it to be seen. And everyone in this room.
If we're to get really, really honest, if every individual was prepared to get really, really honest, our problem is the me. And what do we do about that? Some people seek psychologists, some people seek gurus, some people seek different religions, some people come here, some people try and, improve themselves by hooking up with another partner. It's all about the me is all, if that's taken to be real and taken to be true, then all we try and do from that point of view is add to it. Always trying to add to it, trying to become. Self-improvement, perhaps. Some sort of spiritual path that I'm going to go down. And as a result of that, me's going to get better. Me's going to improve. Me's going to have different insights. I'm going to view the world and see the world a different way and so on. If you're coming here, it ain't about that. The whole idea of non-duality is truth, absolute truth, and fact. And you're just dealing with truth and fact. Coming here is about seeing that there is no me that needs self-improvement. None. It's not there. It's like suicide coming here, I'm telling you.
Can we also then say that no one's actually chosen to come here?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everyone's
Absolutely.
like free will. wouldn't
No
exist.
choice maker.
No.
Correct.
That's right.
There is no free will.
And you look
There's
back,
will, but not free will.
you look back and you'll see circumstances and things that have happened in your life that moved you to look elsewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
So-
it's will, but no free will.
Yeah.
Let's both.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah.
You done?
Yeah.
So there's will but not free will. Yeah. So free will implies an individual, a separate, isolated individual that believes it's choosing. I can do this, I can do that, I can choose to do this, I can choose to... After all, I have free will. Really? What's your life like? Like really? What's your life like? If we've got free will, my life should be perfect.
Spot on.
It should be perfect. Absolutely perfect. After all, I'm in control. I'm in charge. I have free will. I can choose to do whatever I want to do. It's a total, absolute fiction. However, will still seems to happen. Movement still seems to happen. Decisions pop up in the mind and then a movement is made based on certain thoughts that may come up in the mind. But there's no entity there doing any of that. That is just that intelligence that comes through and brought us all here today. Problem is, we think, I brought myself here today. And why did I bring myself here today? See if I can learn something. Because I'm separate, I'm isolated, there's still something I haven't got.
Because I want to wake up.
I want to wake up, whatever, I want to become realised, whatever the story is.
Bob has something to add.
If you think there's self-will, who is the self that has this will? Is it the personal self? We pointed out the person. Person is not reality. Person is just a label we put on. So the self-will is that one self that's expressing, appearing, and expressing as everything. The one self. It is self-aware, not personal self-aware, but the self, it's awareness of self, that is the self. It's self-knowing. It's self-seeing. It's the awareness of self that is seeing, knowing, tasting, touching, smelling, experiencing, expressing. And we added on to this believed in conceptual image the person. But the person is not the reality. So now the mask. It's the mask of concepts we put upon us. Take to be real.
Sometimes referred to as thy will be done. Not mine. Thy will be done. It's only ever thy will that gets done. But the only way to recognise that is to absolutely see for yourself, not take this in as an idea or a concept. See, you need to look for yourself. That's where the truth and the fact comes in. You need to look for yourself. What is this personalised me that I believe and take myself to be? What is it? And look, but look factually and truthfully.
What practice do you bring to your day to keep looking at that and to keep in the truth and not be controlled by the thought? So what? You must have practice or...
There's no practice.
I know there's no, but yeah.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. So
yes.
all that will happen is the more you get exposed to this, the more it'll just pop up throughout your course of the day. You'll be operating and then all of a sudden you go, oh, whoa, I was caught up then. Yeah. Now, you didn't choose to go, oh, I was caught up then. It just happened. Yep. So there isn't a practice because there's no practice.
But it's that. I mean, I come to that and I go, oh. Yeah. And I will catch myself. And so that's what I want to know is...
It just happens.
Yeah.
Yep, it's just the recognition.
Yeah. It is just continually recognising.
Yep.
So just the same as have a look at that.
Yeah.
What's your next thought going to be? You don't know. But thinking happens. So it'll come up as a thought. But it won't be the person necessarily thinking the thought, unless you believe there is a person there thinking the thought, and you'll say that's a thing. So insights, what we call insights, clarity comes up of itself. Because you don't know what your next thought's going to be. But thinking happens, and it'll continue to happen.
And that's actually the purpose for these gatherings, that he is offering certain frequency, and if it resonates, it may accelerate that moment of recognition. And that's what happens when, what people report. The more they come here, the more reminders they get, and the more automatically they actually come to that point where the clouds clear up and the sky is shining through. That's the only purpose, because as he says on the beginning, he can't teach anyone anything. He can't tell anyone anything, because he's just one of the patterns. He's not the messenger to sit on a high throne. He just carries the message. He's just a speaker for that intelligence energy. He's just a mic. And so are we. But we often confuse ourselves with the body. We think we are the body, so we have all the problems that the body has. Or we think we are some dwarf or some little entity inside the body that is operating the body as a vehicle. Whatever the identification is, we obviously, it's just a mistaken identification. We are that life essence also, but we're speaking through the filter of the believed in identification. So when that identification drops off, everybody will be saying basically, roughly what Bob is saying, and Terry, and of course he still has filters, and Terry has 40 years of dropping off filters, over 40 years. It means he's got it much less than I do, or he does. But that never goes away. I mean, certain things, everything can be questioned to the last moment. The idea of pointers can be questioned. Like, is there really cognizing emptiness? If there is, how do I measure it from? Who am I to say that there is an object? This one has to be discarded. If there is an idea of whatever the ideas, none of the words are the thing, as Bob says, the water, we can't drink it. Any of the ideas are always only ideas. And the answer is beyond language, completely beyond the mind. And we all know it, because the language is only over, like, kind of covering over that whole landscape of the sky. The clouds are only passing, they're not there. Like, thoughts are not really obscuring the sky. The clouds are not really obscuring it. It's just content. They're just one of the ways it expresses. They're no wrong. They're not nothing to get rid of. It's just that automatic habit of identifying with the description is to be noticed and enjoyed, because it is actually quite funny. It's quite sweet to see how people step into the roles and identify, now I'm the mother, or now I'm the sad or depressed one, and now, who am I now? Now I'm cognizing emptiness. Whatever, even that's an identification. It can be funny, actually, that movement, that habit of finding an object, because early in childhood we learned to label everything, and we kind of shifted back to from the pure being to the head of understanding, knowledge, which gives us false sense of security. I label it carpet, so now I know what it is, now I'm safe. So I label myself, I label everything else. It's just a play. And if not for the play of labeling and identifying, there would be no even a glimpse of cognizing the Maya. And if there wasn't a glimpse of cognizing the Maya, who would ever wake up? So it is all a beautiful play, and it is to be enjoyed. And when the glimpses of it show up, they're all just joy. But apart from the joy is ordinary awareness, because the joy is, again, another false promise of eternal bliss. There's no such a thing as eternal bliss. If it was, it would be filtered out from awareness, and nobody would be aware of eternal bliss anyway, because what the awareness is aware of is changes, because it is changeless, so it can only know changing. So the joy and the absence of joy, and the bliss and the absence of bliss. There is no such a thing as permanent bliss or permanent joy or permanent anything at all. Even the awareness, if we say there is such a thing as permanent awareness, really? How do we know that? Where do we measure it from? The ultimate answer is no, we can't know it. We can't know what we are, we can't know what awareness is, cognizing emptiness, whatever we define ourselves as, we can't know. The ultimate answer is, I have no clue. But also the ultimate freedom is, I don't have clue and I don't give a shit. I don't really need to know. There's no one here who wants to define anything anymore. If there is no need for self-definition, there is no desire, there is no fear of future, there is no comparison with the past. All that drops away and life becomes just a play. It's nothing really. There's pain in it, of course, just as much as pleasure. But there is no suffering, because there is no ownership of the pain or pleasure. There is no ownership of desires or anything that appears on the screen. So that's the possibility. And this gathering is just a reminder, just a resonance. And it can almost serve as a practice. I mean, like exposing oneself to that type of a reminder. We don't do it, of course. We don't bring ourselves to expose ourselves. We don't decide to come and get it. But when it happens, that's how life plays out. That's the beauty of it. Isn't it? So?
I can't tell you.
Good.
As mentioned, permanent. There again, you've gone back and pointed out a lot. There's such a thing as time. If you've got the idea of permanent, it's spontaneous.
Yeah.
And eternity, if you're looking for eternity is right now. It's not some billion light years away. That had a beginning. It'll certainly have an end. When does now begin? You can't pinpoint it or give it a static point. So it's beginning right now, and as it's beginning, it's already ending. And that's eternity, beginningless, endless, timeless, placeless, bodiless, mindless. Right here, right now. And there's a minute. You are that. And time is caught up with us.
There is no time. Spontaneous. Spontaneity.
So now has caught up with us.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much. Thank you.